One thing that we'll all experience at some point in our life is grief, but we're not always prepared on how to deal with it. And I speak about this with actor and sports journalist Louis Balletta in this episode of Iggy Sports Talk.
Yeah. Hold up. Wait until the whole team show
Welcome
up.
back into Iggy Sports Talk. I'm your host, Jakey Nizuski, or Iggy for short. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a subject that we all go through at some point in our life, but we never know how to deal with it when it's happening to ourselves or to other people. And that's grief. Whether it's a death in your family, a pet, or somebody that you look up to, it's never easy to deal with. And it's really important to know how to not only support yourself if you're going through it, but also supporting others who are going through it. And I spoke about this subject with actor and sports journalist Louis Balletta, who's previously been a part of Law Order SVU and is currently filming the reboot of Sex and the City and Just Like That with Sarah Jessica Parker. And he most recently, unfortunately, lost his Pomeranian, Foxy, and has been going through grief over the last few months or so. And if this is your first time listening to Iggy Sports Talk, you're probably thinking in your mind, well, it has sports talk in the title, so why aren't we talking about sports? Well, in each and every single episode, I really try and focus on not only the deeper aspects of sports, but also the deeper aspects of life, and really shed light on subjects that, in my mind, aren't talked about enough. And a subject like grief is something that we all go through at some point in our life. And so if I'm able to help you in this episode learn about how to deal with grief, not only in your own life, but also to help support others who are currently going through it, that's a win in my mind. And in each episode, I try and help you learn from other people's experiences. And so Louis and I speak about not only the best way to support others who are dealing with grief, but also on how to support yourself and what he's really learned throughout his experience of dealing with grief. And even though this is a little bit of a more heavier subject, I think it's one that's really important. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Louis Balletta. I am here with actor, writer, and sports journalist Louis Balletta. And one of the biggest reasons why I want to have you on, Louis, is not only from your experiences throughout your career, but also one of your biggest passions is helping out others through your personal experiences. And unfortunately, you most recently had a passing of your dog, your Pomeranian Foxy, and you've really done some incredible work being able to shed light on some of your struggles with grief and helped others through those experiences.
Yes. If I had to go back to that, it's a grief thing that everybody has to go through at least once in their life. And could be a human, could be a pet. And I lost my dog over 3 months ago. And every day it seems like it gets harder. But yeah, she was definitely the purpose. She was my purpose in life, and my motor. And you kind of realize that when things are going on, when you're living those days. But it gets much more apparent what they meant to you when that being is gone. And you have to sort of recalibrate after, because the world is swept from underneath your feet. Your foundation is gone. And again, going back to that word, purpose, man, when you're serving something other than yourself, which is, in my case, it was a dog, she was my best friend. It's just like my kid. When that's gone, you have to sort of recalibrate. And it's one of the hardest processes in the world. And, those last 3 months of her life were the best months of my life because I was very present. I was in the moment. Like I said, I was in service and purpose to try to keep her alive. And those ended up being the best 3 months of my life. So I wanted other people to have that opportunity. So I created Foxy's Heart, which is a foundation, a campaign that raises money for families that can't afford their vet care. A lot of times people put their dog to sleep, their cat to sleep, because they can't afford the vet care. The bills are tremendous. So thank God I was afforded the ability to keep my dog alive. And like I said, those last 3 months were the best of my life, and I want other people to have that.
I think that's so important, especially, when you don't have the financial flexibility to be able to do that. That's the toughest thing. And whether it's, a pet or a family member, as you mentioned, or even just like a friend, I think, grief is one of the toughest things to really encounter. And, when we first spoke, I told you about how I most recently, dealt with two passings of my grandparents and my pet hamster as well. And, the toughest thing for me was consoling my mom and my family members after those family passings. And I'll never forget my mom said, "Why are we even here? If essentially
Mhm.
we're gonna have to deal with this, year after year with multiple different people that we love." And it was just like that whole like true question of like, why are we here? And I feel like these experiences make us stronger, and it's not easy either. And you brought up the word purpose, and I'm curious from your perspective, how is grief really connected with purpose?
And it's a great question. Going back to the other thing, my mom said the same exact thing about grief and how, what are we here for if we're going to be suffering all
Mm,
the time? And it's just one hit after the next. And it's like, and I'm going to get back to this in a second after I answer this question, because I had a good conversation with a pretty famous actor that was on set about this very, very topic. But um, how grief relates to purpose first. How grief relates to purpose is, wow, you have to see, when my grandmother died and other family members died, I used that as a sort of like awakening in the moment thing. And I was able to not only move, but move at higher speeds and with more motivation, because I pictured them somewhere around in energy form, whatever you believe in. And there's part of me as almost helpers in the sky around me. And
mhm.
I wanted to not only honor them, but I wanted to receive their help. And that's how I used grief and that longing for them as motivation. Um, with Foxy, it was, whew, I can't really describe it, but I think she was more a part of my heart um, than I ever imagined. And when you're trying to, when you're trying to move forward without a motor, without your engine, it's really hard to start. It's really hard to get up out of bed. Forget work. There is no
Mhm.
working. There's no eating. There's no working. There's no working out. None of your daily habits are the same. It's impossible. So you have to figure out a way to turn whatever your beliefs are into purpose and motivation. And man, some people said, hey, imagine your dog was watching you from above or from wherever you believe, and you have to make her proud. She would want to see you happy,
Mhm.
and do this for her. Do
Right.
this for her. And every day, I think I woke up, I kind of like would play this mind game of, you know what? She's with me here. Wherever I am, she's with me. And I want to make her happy. She doesn't want to see me on the floor crying all day, withering away. So I used that almost like an imagination game where she's with me all the time, and I'm pretending she's everywhere where I am, through downtimes and through successes, and trying to make purpose to serve her. But now that she's in a different place, but to serve her wherever she is, and to make my dog. I know it sounds funny to most people that are not pet owners, but to make your dog proud and happy, and they don't want to see you crumble.
Well, especially during those dark times too, pets are a lot of those times the ones who can really comfort you the most.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of times always, when you're in those dark times or those down times where words will really make an impact. You just need somebody there to comfort you. And, especially when you have a certain connection with a pet or with a person, and you're not able to have them by your side the next day. That's never easy. And I think what you brought up too is
Nightmare.
Yeah, and being able to, have that perspective and that mindset of making them proud, I think is really important. And you also mentioned this, earlier is, during that time, when it was the last few months, you were present. I think that's important with whether it's somebody is close to that point of death or if they're not, being present and enjoying every single second that you have with
Yeah.
that loved one, with that pet, because you never know what could happen the next day.
That gives you the value, that educates you to the value of life and being in the moment. And those last moments in those 3 months were truly absolute. That was absolute life. And sometimes it takes grief to teach you that. And sometimes it takes trauma to teach you that, or pain, loss. But that was the biggest teacher, at least for me, changing me completely. It just unbelievably changed me, because it shows you what really matters in life. You could be out there, maybe it's with your brother or your mother, and you're sitting on a bench in a park, or you're having ice cream with somebody, and there is no phones, there is nothing around. And like, those are the moments that matter. Yeah.
And I admire you being able to, speak about this and your vulnerability. And I think this is just for myself, it's a great reminder why I do this podcast. It does have the name Iggy Sports Talk, but in my mindset in each and every single episode is to be able to uncover some of these tough life moments or life experiences in society to help others go through the same things. And I feel like that's, what we're here to do as human beings, is share our experiences and be able to use them to help others who might be going through it, or to prepare them prior to when they go through it. And, for yourself, I bet there was a part of you, at least when maybe speaking with friends, or, speaking about your loss, or even leading up to it, the fear of being vulnerable. I know for, myself, I've been around a lot of other people. When men exude vulnerability, they get judged, they get called soft, and that doesn't really matter at all. You're a human being at the end of the day, and you should be able to show your feelings. And so, what have you learned throughout that, and what message would you have for men going through grief to motivate them to want to be vulnerable and speak about more about their feelings?
I think, first off, it's like society is not set up for that right now. And yeah, it's getting better. People are encouraging it more, but yeah, it's one of those things where I would advise people out there to be themselves, around their family first, around people that you really, really love and care for, and that trust you first. And hold on, I think my microphone, let me just plug it back in. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, that's awesome. So I believe that you should try and keep your feelings as open and as real, almost like a practice, like you're going to the gym, around certain close people. Because I think when you do that, you give them the permission to be themselves and to be real. They might want to be coming out to you as well. You might maybe want some help from you. So I would say to start with the people that are closest to you, and be fearless and saying what you need, or sharing a story. Because if you share a story with that person about your grief, your loss, that person might want to open up to you and tell you about their close grandmother who just passed 2 years ago. They might not have been able to talk about them to anyone, or they might talk about their ex-girlfriend who cheated on them. And, as their best friend, you never knew about that. And now they're coming out to you with almost in tears, and you see another side of your friend. So I would say to just be fearless and asking for, so either asking for support or just telling a story. I think the best thing people can do is help. Like, if you're the friend of the guy that's in loss, or the guy that's in grief, if you're the friend, don't be scared. Be around that friend and try and have that friend talk about what's going on. Because a lot of time talking helps. If your friend just say lost his mother, ask him about the memories of his mother. He might want to make sense of his life, and he might want to go down that memory lane and share those memories to keep her name and her being alive. That would be my advice, being on the other side.
And I think with those stories, that's such a therapeutical practice, because I know for myself, when I was going through grief from my recent grandfather's passing, I remember it didn't fully hit me until we were at his burial and we were at his funeral, when I fully realized, I said bye to him, and I wrote a whole speech, but the waterworks really came, when it felt real. And I think with being able to tell those stories, it helps remind you of the great moments that you had with that person, rather than the somber moments that you're experiencing in that current moment. And for you, not only through speaking about those stories and looking at those great moments, what tools have you really learned through your experience and from speaking with other people on how to release those feelings of grief? And because I know that there's 8 stages,
Yeah.
but there's great tools that I bet that you figured out throughout this time as well.
Yeah, I feel that integrating these feelings is very important. Not pushing them away. That's the number one thing. The more you try to push these feelings away, the more they're going to attack you. That's why they say that you have to go through, the key word, through grief. Whether that means crying literally for hours before you even move in your bed, then that's what you got to do. Maybe it's taking a walk outside on the grass with bare feet, and connecting with the universe somehow out there, pretending that your loved one is with you out there, talking with them. Whatever that is, you have to sort of go through that, because the more you start to shy away from that, and the more you start to the more you push it away, the more it's going to eat you up. And it's just not healthy in every way possible. I think writing, for a lot of people, writing and journaling is really wonderful. And if you happen to have the luxury of being in the arts and the performance arts, say you're a singer, in my case, I'm an actor. If you're a writer, whatever it is, man, that's where the gold is. You go to that place that has affected you the most. And let's say in my case, it's lines, and I'm saying someone else's lines, and I'm talking to some girl in a scene that I don't know. I've never talked to or kissed or dated, but she's leaving me, say, in the scene. And, I put my personalization up there, and I bring all of these feelings to that set that I have, and I'm willing to show that. Man, that you're going to get the best art in the world, and you're going to fool people around. You're going to fool the person who's watching. They're going to be like, wow, that guy has such a connection to the girl. And that's what art is about. It's about using your feelings, and whether it be tears of joy or tears of grief or longing or missing or loneliness or whatever it may be, you bring that to your art, to your singing. You put your personalization up on the fourth wall on a stage where you're singing. And let me tell you, you see the difference right away in art. You bring this sort of the depth, right? Because those guys aren't magicians. People don't understand. Artists are not magicians. They're just using their real life experiences. Whereas the layman holds down those experiences. Mm-hmm. They push them down. They don't know how to use that on camera. They don't know how to use that in a song, right? So artists, I feel, have an advantage, because they can actually be vulnerable and show it. And, you're making some money off of it. You're also creating some art off of it, and that's like the most courageous thing in the world. Now, how does a normal person do that? Well, I think I talked about it briefly with you once, is through writing, through journaling. I think that's the most, stream of consciousness. Write it down, put it on paper. It's the most cathartic thing in the world, to put it on paper. Don't be scared to write to your loved one who you miss. I say, just don't be scared to do any of that stuff. Do what you feel. If you want to write to them, write to them. If you want to write a story, about the way you the way you think things should have went
Mm.
before they passed, before that person dumped you, or before that person, whatever it is you're going through. That's what I say is be proactive in this and integrate it rather than jump away from it.
And I think, especially with writing on a piece of paper rather than typing on your phone or typing on a laptop, it's a massive difference. And, some people might be like, what are you talking about? But I don't know the exact science of it, but I heard something where it's something with when your hand is moving and it connects to your brain, you're able to contextualize it a lot better. And I feel like through my experiences, whether it's just journaling, whether it's about grief or, tough times, or even I'll never forget, I was writing a letter to my friend in the army after a breakup, and I was sort of telling him everything. And I just broke down in tears out of nowhere. And you never really know how much you need it until it happens. And I feel like as well, with friends, we spoke about, friends being there and the importance of having a support system. But I know for me, anytime I see, a post on social media or I get a text from somebody that they had lost someone, really all I know to send is, I'm so sorry for your loss, my condolences. But I one thing that I feel uncomfortable about is I don't know if you want to talk more about it. I don't know which way to go. I don't know if you want me to support you more. And from your experience, how do you think is the best way to comfort somebody when they're going through grief?
All right, well, you're gonna hate me for this one. You're gonna really hate me for this one. But it's good. We learn from each other. You know what I'm saying? I probably do a million things that would upset you 100%. There was one thing that upsets me, and that is like if I have a post up there, right, of Foxy or something, and the person says, "I'm sorry for your loss." That's the one thing I don't like. It's like, because you see a billion, I'm sorry for your losses, right? So I did that too. Like I used to ask my mom growing up, like, what do I say at the funeral? What do I say? She's like, sorry for your loss. That's what you get taught, right? Mm-hmm. And now that I'm in it, now that I have experienced the grief, I think the best thing you can do and the best thing you can write up there to help that person with their mental health at that time, it goes back to what I said. It's like, I think you should engage them. I think you should really engage them, man. Tell them, feel free to post pictures of your loved one. We want to see him. We want to see her, right? Write something, right? Can you write a story? I know you're missing your dad, right? I know, because I have a dad, and man, if my dad died, I didn't know what I would do. I don't even know how you're feeling right now. Write that. Say, I don't know how you're feeling right now, but man, I can only imagine. Tell us, if you can, tell us about your dad. Write something about him. We want to hear. That is the best thing you can possibly do to someone.
I think as well, something as simple as, I'm here for you. Reach out if you need anything.
That's perfect. That is perfect. I always wanted to hear that. Yeah, I'm here for you. Can you talk? Can you call me? You can call me whenever you want. That's the definition of support.
And I think as well, it's tough, whether in moments of grief or dark times, you feel just so alone, and to really be able to realize all of the amazing people that you have around you. I think for men as well, it's tough to not live in quiet desperation. And as well, if you speak about some of your struggles, then there's that other part of the spectrum where, people judge you, and then you get even more scared to be vulnerable. And when we had a conversation before this, I told you about how I wanted to post a mental health check-in and speak about some of my struggles. I deleted it after recording 6 different versions, and almost didn't post it because I was thinking about how others would judge me. And I just looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, this is exactly what you try to promote against.
Yes. And it's like, because you were so hardwired. You're thinking about the 1 or 2 kind of dumbbell heads out there that are like going to judge you or say something under their breath. Maybe it's not even public, but they're judging you at home in front of their computer. And it's like, can't get caught up on those whatever you want to call. You can't get caught up on them, because they're not in a good place. They probably don't like themselves, so they don't want to hear things like that. So it's like, just put it out there. Just put it out there and be open. Just be open with it. Be yourself. And, I think there's strength in, from the school I'm in, theater, TV, film, all that, you're there. If you're vulnerable, you're considered strong. But if you are a man and vulnerable in real life, man, girls will run the other way. Like that's what we're taught, or whoever is going to just, the Red Sea is going to part.
And you just said something, being authentically yourself, and that's so tough in this society with comparison syndrome, seeing what is happening on social media. And for you've filled a lot of different roles as an actor, as a model, a writer, a sports journalist, in all those different types of jobs. How have you been able to make sure and check yourself that you're being authentically you? Obviously you're going to be playing a certain character, but at the same time, when you get off of that character, you're still authentically yourself. You're not comparing yourself to different actors, models, whatever it is, and just making sure that you're showing up as you.
Because one thing most people don't get in the beginning is that specificity. That's the gold. So however you are more authentically yourself, it's going to translate more universal. It's kind of opposite than what's talked about. But the more you go inside yourself, specific, and you are specific, whether you're acting, writing, whatever, like I said, anything, the more specific you are, the more, because there's stuff that everyone has that other people don't. So the more that you dip into that stuff, the more magic is going to come out, right? Because in the beginning, just opposing this, in the beginning, everybody is like, oh, I want to fit, like they try to fit in. So they're like, I want to look like say a sportscaster. I want to look like an actor. I want to look like this. I want to look like that. So let me do the universal thing and let me act and behave universally like other people do. Well, guess what? They'll never go anywhere. The only thing that you have to do is be authentically yourself. And those specific things that you reach down for, they actually come out and they show on a camera. They show in words on paper. They show in a podcast. Because then that makes you an individual. You're not you don't come across as you're trying to fit in. You come across as someone, believe it or not, that they at home can relate to.
I think that's the key, whether, you're on camera as a sportscaster, as an actor, whatever it is. And I know for myself, I remember saying, to my parents, I don't want to be just like any other person on sports on TV with a microphone. I want to use my voice to help other people and, not only talk about sports, but connect, real life moments in mental health and wrap it all in to be able to help others through my voice. And, with all the different roles that you've been in, I'm curious from what you've seen, not only in the acting space, the modeling space, but also the sports space, how mental health and that conversation has really grown over the last few years or so.
I think it's tremendous. I'll give you an example. Now, like I live in New York, like now, as like 20 years ago, this would never be okay. But now I have friends that call into work that say, I need a mental health day. That's case an example right there of how things are changing. So like you cannot now, you don't have to not go to work and not work that day and say, hey, I have a stomach problem or my family member died. And you have to lie. You can just say, hey, I need a mental health day. It's just like being physically injured. But now we're recognizing the mental aspect of things that, hey, some people are going through some really bad things, right? And we got to honor that, just like they were physically incapable of coming to work or performing work. It is 1000% true. Someone's pet dies. Maybe they got 2 hours of sleep the last 2 nights because they had so much work. You think that person's going to be able to function well the third day or fourth day after that amount of sleep at work? I mean, no, it makes no sense. So yeah, I mean, we're starting to realize that people are human beings and we're not robots. And we are people. I mean, over the last 10 years, I've seen people even openly talk about, hey, I'm ADD. Hey, I'm this. Hey, I'm that. Like now they're starting to like have that conversation, right? Man, I'm depressed. Like that's starting to happen. So it's a good thing. It's a fine line too, because you don't want the other thing to happen. You don't want people to start using that as like their new sick excuses, and they can't come to work because that, you don't want that either. But there's a nice healthy balance that's starting to happen. And case an example, like these people that are calling out to work, it's just saying they need a mental health day. So that it's getting much better. It's getting much better. I think it's happening in sports too. We had in the NBA, Andrew Wiggins. He's been out. I'm an NBA writer, and I still don't know the amount of games, but I think it's like 22 games he's been out. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But 22 games, he's coming back, I think, today or tomorrow. Mentally, he's not right. And he plays for the Golden State Warriors. They're the champions. Yeah. And they honored that. Steve Kerr and the organization, they honored that because you know what? His dad's going through health issues. And if the dad's going through health issues, I mean, if your parents are going through health, are you going to be able to play that well unless you are medicated on 5 different drugs? No, you're not going to be able to come to work every day. So he obviously loved his dad a lot. And they afforded him that opportunity to sit out. And now he's coming back for the playoffs. But, these things would have never happened back when. Now they're allowing it.
And it's also nice, too, to see it in the media. A lot more people are being accepting of it and not, judging, especially some of the old folks that are in sports media. And, we saw Calvin Ridley do it last year. And I just saw Daniel Bard in Major League Baseball. He was the first player to go on the injured list with anxiety, which is something I deal with anxiety. And it was really cool to see now that is considered an injury. But, one other thing that I wanted to speak to you about, with all your different roles is we see a lot of times people have a desire to do something, but they fear to take that leap and sort of make it happen with a new role and don't like to get out of their comfort zone. And I'm curious for you, what have you learned about blocking out that fear and just going after what you want?
Man, okay. So it's a great question. Best thing to do is just to do it. So you learn through the desensitization. I can't even pronounce the damn word. The desensitization of the process. So you're never going to lose the anxiety. Never. Every time I do my stuff or acting, when you're in front of a camera, you have anxiety. It's never going to let go. I know basketball players and baseball players that have anxiety before every game. The reason why is because they're human. So when you do it once, twice, 5 times, don't start judging yourself on the 5th time. Don't start judging yourself even 1 year into playing the sport, being in front of the camera. Don't judge yourself after 1 year. If you have anxiety that's crippling after 1 year, well, then guess what? Do it 2 years. And then certainly by year 3, certainly by year 4, there's that 10,000 hours thing, right? That's where you're a master at something. I'm telling you, even the masters have anxiety. So you learn what happens is you have this mechanism that learns how to channel that anxiety and bring it back into my field, the actor thing, right? The best actors in the world can channel their anxiety. They channel it, and guess what? Not only does it not cripple them, it helps their performance. So the best artists in the world use that anxiety. The best athletes in the world use anxiety and fear to perform. God gave you that liveliness inside your body. It might make you shake. It might make you go faster. You have to learn where to use it. You have to learn how, and everyone has to develop their own method. So the only thing you can do, right? Best thing you could do, get up in the morning, meditate, write, do what you have, visualize, do all your homework. I call that like your homework, right? And then show up and do that every single day, regardless of how you feel. Like kind of just know the anxiety is going to be there, but you learn how to deal with and use the anxiety. And that's the best advice I could give to like a performer, an athlete, whatever it may be. Just learn how to use it.
And sometimes that anxiety can be adrenaline, especially if you're able to change your perspective towards that.
Of course, you could turn that anxiety into anything, because that's energy. So you could turn that anxiety, you could flip a switch and be angry off that if you're in a scene. You could flip a switch, be angry. You could use that for like aggression and anger on the court, on the basketball court. You can use that in every single way possible. And um, man, I like. There's not words for it, but I definitely the anxiety in scenes, and I feel like I'm better now. I'm better because of the anxiety. It's a weird thing. I know it sounds crazy, but thank God that shakiness is there before, because I use it, that signal in my body. It makes me focus in more. When I feel that shivery, I focus in more, and I feel like I live better on camera than I live in real life. I know it's crazy. I know.
And but I also think too, like being able to, you brought up those affirmations and
Yeah.
being able to help program your mind and help, sort of, delusionally make yourself believe that you can do it. Like I am comfortable on camera. Like just
Yes.
using the I am phrases with already what you want to believe, even if you don't believe it in the exact moment, if you just say it over and over again, the anxiety is going to start to trickle away and you're going to start believing more in yourself and believing more in that idea. But this has been an incredible conversation, Louis. And I know
Thank
for,
you.
people starting off, the episode probably had some tears in their eyes, and now they're probably ready to just run
Yeah.
through a brick wall and
Yeah.
motivation and
Yeah.
inspiration. But I know that you also wanted and are working on making Foxy's Heart a
Thank you.
nonprofit organization. And for anybody who wants to support that cause and support everything that you're doing right now, whether it's Foxy's Heart or whether it's, your other roles as an actor or as a journalist, how can they do all that?
Foxy's Heart, you can type that in the Foxy's Heart and then my name, Louis Balletta, on Google, and it'll come in. It's a GoFundMe campaign. And that, like I said, that helps families that can't afford to pay for their vet bills. That gives them the opportunity to save their dog or cat. And that's there. Maybe we can include a link or something. I don't know. I'll give you the link because it's easier to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it'll be in
and
the
then
description.
yeah, it's my name, Louis Edward Balletta, on Instagram and Facebook. I'm the same. But more importantly, man, forget about me. It's the Foxy's Heart organization is really important to me, and I'm not asking you guys to donate. Don't have to donate anything. I just would love you to take that link and just share it, and it speaks for itself. So I just want her name to live on.
And we're going to help make sure that that does happen. I really appreciate you speaking about this, Louis, and for,
Thanks.
being vulnerable throughout this conversation to, really be able to help others throughout your experience. But it was a pleasure, my man.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. This is one of the best interviews I've ever did. So I love talking about this, and you're doing a great job. So I'll continue to be a fan, and
Really appreciate you.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. I hope that you did enjoy my conversation with Louis Balletta and got a little bit more insight on not only how to deal with grief with yourself, but also how to support others who are dealing with grief. And I hope that you enjoy episodes like this where I don't always focus on sports and feel inspired from an episode like this. And it's really able to help you learn about how to deal with subjects that, in my mind, aren't talked about enough in our society, and ones that are difficult just in our everyday life. And I'm going to try and continue to do that with each and every single episode. And if you want to tune in for future episodes, I post bi-weekly over on YouTube or wherever audio platform that you're listening to currently right now. So you can subscribe over on YouTube, like I mentioned, or, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, really wherever you find your podcast. Iggy Sports Talk is over there. And if you want to support the amazing organization that Louis has called Foxy's Heart, which is shining light on pet families that need veterinary care for their beloved pets, I'll put that link in the description. And I know that he would really appreciate any support that you could offer. But as always, I greatly appreciate tuning in to Iggy's Sports Talk. And as I said, I hope this episode helped you in some way, shape, or form. That's my goal with each and every single episode. But I'll see you and talk to you next time. Peace.